Welcome to Dungeons & Dragons, it's where the settings are made up and the rules don't matter. In our previous installment, we talked about the Rule of One. The Rule of One is a time-saving device we use in order to create a silhouette of a location or a person or a place or thing that we can establish and utilize to quickly fill in the blanks for any details on something. And what I mean by that is, when implementing the Rule of One, we choose one big outstanding detail and we just describe that one thing. And we sell it for every detail that's attached to it. This allows us to quickly and efficiently make details, make backgrounds. With that in mind, now we're going to discuss the Rule of Two. The Rule of Two is, in essence, exactly like the Rule of One, the idea of making a big detail. But in this case, this detail doesn't support the first detail, it conflicts. So what we're doing is we're creating depth to our descriptions, our details, our facts, by giving something as a paradox. We are creating an idea that conflicts with the first, so that not only does it stand out, but it creates its own story, simply by the fact that two opposing ideas are true at the same time. Let's take New York City. Our fictional New York is a glowing metropolis. It is festooned with giant skyscrapers and is financial capital of the world. Men in expensive suits ride around in limousines and get into all kinds of shenanigans involving high power moves and grandiose schemes. Now let's apply the Rule of Two. Got another big detail, but this one contrasting and opposing. New York City, a crime-filled Gotham, a city where muggers and thieves crawl the alleys. Con men openly sell bootleg goods, hawking the latest CD which hasn't even come out yet. Meanwhile, the city's mechanization itself are controlled by organized crime. Any minor job, role from dog catcher up to mayor, all controlled by other men in dark suits who have their own mechanizations to make sure the people that they want get into control and run the city around them. And there we have the contrast of fictional New York, a glorious, gleaming metropolis that's also a dark, gritty Gotham. And we did it with only two big details. Everything we can make from here on just supports those two big details. The best part about it is, when someone asks about your fictional New York, you can start by just telling them the metropolis story. And when they get there, they realize things are much more different and much more dark and deep than they realized. That your fictional New York City is the land of conflicts and mysteries, where everything can happen. Okay, with that in mind, let's go ahead and do the area around Black Bend. This time, for time's sake, we're only going to do like 3 locations. Let's start off with our namesake, Fort Black Bend. We know Fort Black Bend is a blackstone fort, which is also the last bastion of hope. That's because it contains and run by the knight Sullivan. Sullivan is a good and honorable man. He does his best to protect the locals of Fort Black Bend, all while sitting inside a strange, corrupt, ancient fortress where the dead walk the halls. A place where men in ancient armor can be seen walking the walls, and where a woman sings strange songs in her head in an odd language no one knows. Now, technically, putting those two things together, we've already technically done a Rule of Two for Fort Black Bend. Let's make it a little darker and deeper. Let's make things really complicated for Sullivan by offsetting him even more. See, recently Fort Black Bend has become a smuggler's paradise. The Pike family has a new lord, and Sullivan must do its duty to him. Young Lord Pike is requiring Sullivan to collect iron oak in the Wolfwoods north of the fortress. But with the wolves in the woods, no one can get near. As such, young Lord Pike has created a variety of mechanizations, all to try and get that wood into his hands. First, every sort of ruffian, outlaw, bandit, and thief is being allowed to travel through the territory, unhindered, so long as they go directly to the woods and gather as many hides as they can for sale back at the fortress. More importantly, these bandit camps are being reinforced in supplies by smugglers bringing up hunting implements, wolf spears, bows, nets, and traps, all used to clear the wolves out of the woods. Meanwhile, log pirates from upstream steal lumber from the region of High Bend, taking young Lord Pike's neighbor's wood and bringing it directly to him for resale. All these things Sullivan's been told to turn a blind eye to. Also, young Lord Pike can get his wood. But things are turning darker recently. Sullivan's been hearing words, prisoners in the logging camps being forced to cut wood against their will. Boats have been seen loaded with mushroom wine and intoxicants and drugs, all appear to be heading north. And finally, Sullivan recently got reports of weapons going north. Weapons which cannot be used to hunt wolves. Pikes, axes, shields. Things one would use to make war. But war on who? Highbend? Does young Lord Pike plan to attack his neighbors? To plan to go north? Is his real goal to start off by clearing the Wolf Wood and going a step farther and taking the territory north of him? Sullivan doesn't know, but he does know he's to have the Wolf Wood cleared and done by springtime. Springtime's exactly when one would launch an attack on one's neighbors. So, are these logging camps up north? Are they lumber yards? Are they poaching fields? Or are they war camps devised as a version by young Lord Pike in order to basically gather more territory that doesn't belong to him? Okay, well, that was unexpected. We created an idea contradictory to Sullivan being there to help everyone, to Sullivan being unable to help everyone. That's our contradiction, and by creating this idea that there are smugglers in the area he can't deal with, we just created something completely different. And just like that, we accidentally created a political plot. That's the rule too. When you create two polar opposites, the grays in the middle kind of fill themselves in once you start trying to explain them. Let's continue. Let's go to Haunted Battlefield. And we all know there's a haunted battlefield nearby, known the Fallow Fields. The Fallow Fields, two ancient armies walk and do battle at night. Anyone caught in their grasp either fall prey to them or end up joining their ranks. But what's opposing that? The Fallow Fields is also, oddly enough, a moment of reprieve. The Fallow Fields is a location where old soldiers, warriors, mercenaries, duelists, people who've had too much of killing, can travel and be forgiven. See, there's an ancient ritual involving the Fallow Fields. A warrior who's done walks into the fields and will not be harmed by any undead. They will stand aside and allow him to pass. Once he buries his blade in the ground, the dead will never touch him again. They will never harm him. They will leave him alone. No ghost, no phantom, no shadow will ever attempt to harm a hair on his head, so long as he keeps his vow. But more importantly, before you leave the fields, you will see the face the person you killed that you regret the most. And you'll have a moment where they forgive you or where they damn your name. There's only one way of finding out. And there we have the Fallow Fields. And now it's a much deeper place. It's a place where something strange and magical is going on, something horrific. Something that caused these two armies to still battle hundreds if not thousands of years later. At the same time, it's a place where a warrior can seek redemption. Alright, now let's wrap it up with the mystery cave, the Gullet. We said in our last story, the Gullet is a portal. It's a deep dark cave people go into and never come back. At the same time, it's also a deep dark cave that terrible things come out to attack the fortress. Alright, so what's opposite of that? It's a great question. What if none of it is by accident? The Gullet is... once a portal, things aren't slipping over by accident. Instead, it's a portal things are coming through on very, very much purpose. Our Fae, Lord Obergon, has left his mark all over the Seven Valleys. The fortress, the mysterious Sea of Divide, Magda's Grove. All these places are prisons. Something terrible and awful is contained behind each and every single one of them. All these places are places that Lord Obergon needs access to make sure that they're still active, that they're still there. The things contained beneath them are still in place. The reason why things come out of the Mystery Cave is because they are there to try the defenses of those locations to see if anything can escape. The people who try to go back in, they get caught in a network of traps designed to make sure that they're creatures. They cannot leave. What's the strange thing that caused the Sea of Divide? What's keeping Magda here? What's under the ancient battlefield? We don't know that, but now we know there's something there. And how about Fort Blackbend? What sits under Fort Blackbend, corrupting men's minds and causing them to hear things and see things? What lies down an ancient well, old and dark, thinking it's an ancient god, something that once it awakes, it will once again try to rebuild its namesake. And that's all a big mystery for everyone. But But now we have 3 locations, all with the rule of 2, all which have expanded outwards. They become more deep and dark and gain depth simply because they have these 2 opposing elements, these 2 opposing ideas that we as dungeon masters have to explain how they're true at the same time. We've created these paradoxes. How can you have a battlefield that's cursed and that is also a place that the old soldiers will desire to travel out to? How can you have an ancient fortress that has the best men in the area in it, but also allows the worst to move around it? How can you have this strange, odd cave and keeps it belching things out for unknown reasons, only to find out those reasons are very well known and precisely timed in order to make sure that things don't escape? And the question is, what's going to happen if Long Pike is planning a war and battle, if he is planning to attack his neighbor, and the battle goes bad and it goes all the way back to Fort Blackbend? Will that capped well be knocked open? Will that thing that's beneath it be exposed? We created a political plot where young Lord Pike is up to no good, and Sullivan's probably going to check on him, going to hire the players for that. But if war comes and it goes bad, what will be released? You just got a 3-part campaign, and you got it by creating 2 big contradictory ideas. Like I said, you don't have to create 2 details for every location. Starting off, you only need 1 to start off with 1 big idea. But when you create these additional details, you create these yins and yangs, these lights and darks, these highs and lows. What should be in the middle builds itself. By explaining how these 2 contradictory ideas are true at the same time, you create depth in your locations, and you do it very, very easily. And more importantly, all you gotta do to create that depth is maintain that those 2 distinctly different ideas are true at the same time. In any case, that's it for this module, and we will cover and expand why I chose 3 locations rather than doing 5 or more in our next module, the Rule of 3. In the meantime, good luck and good gaming.